Well, hello there, lovelies. It's time for another Q&A Tuesday. So I used to do these like the first Tuesday of every month, and then I stopped, and now I do them whenever I feel like it. And I'm answering questions from you guys. I got a lot of questions this time. I guess that's what happens when you get more subscribers. Anyway, I'm gonna try to answer all the questions as efficiently as I can. And to make this a little more organized, I've actually organized these questions to make it more organized. I've organized these questions into little like sections. So the first section is going to be questions about me, and the second section is going to be questions about like the translating profession. The third section is going to be questions about the Japanese language, and the fourth section is going to be questions like miscellaneous, things that kind of don't fit into any one of those single categories. So let's get started. Outer Space asks, do you live in Japan? No, I could lie, huh? I could just say, yeah, I live in Japan, and then suddenly a bunch of people would be more interested in watching me because, ooh, she might show us little insights about Japan. But no, I watch a lot of like expats who live in Japan, like Charla and Chris Sprott and Rachel and Jun and all those folks. I watch them, but no, I'm sadly not living in Japan. I live in Washington State. Andrew Soto asked, hey, Andrew Soto, he's a $10 patron, and I owe you another video of your choice. At the $10 level on Patreon, I will make a video of your choice once per year. It renews yearly, so I made him a video last year. So I owe you, Andrew, I owe you another video. So let me know what you want me to make a video about, and I will make it. Some restrictions apply. Anyway, Andrew Soto asks, hello, what would be your ideal type of location to live, i.e. coastal mountains, desert, etc.? Also, feel free to describe your preferred population density and weather. Oh boy. So my favorite type of location to live, I've mentioned this in passing. I want to live in the country. I want to live, well, specifically like in the mountains in the country. I want to live in a rural area that is not the suburbs, that is not the city. I don't like the suburbs. I don't like cities. They kind of make me depressed. I don't like being around people. I hate noise. So I want to live someplace nice and quiet with a bunch of green nature around. Specifically, I'd like there to be like wild berry bushes nearby and like, I forget what it's called, but it's like a deciduous and evergreen forest mixed. Basically, like this area in the Pacific Northwest has a lot of that, and that's partly why we moved up here. It's gorgeous. It's like just our kind of gorgeous. But yeah, someplace like that in the middle of the woods. There would be like neighbors maybe a mile away from us at any like given radius. So like our nearest neighbor in any direction would be about a mile away, and like preferably all of them would be like farmers and they would all grow different things and produce different kinds of food. So we could have like our dairy farmers and cheesemongers like on one side, and then we'd have our like meat farmers on the other side, and then this other farmers would be growing a lot of fruits, and then other farmers would be growing vegetables. And we grow some stuff as well, but we suck at it. We have black thumbs and we're city folk. So, I mean, we hope to learn someday how to grow our own food pretty well, but in the meantime, it'd be really nice to like have farmers nearby to get all of our stuff. The nearest like suburban area to do our grocery shopping and to buy like cleaning supplies and basic living needs would be like a half hour away probably. Wouldn't want it to be too far away. We'd have to go there once or twice a month, and it would be really annoying to have to drive forever. And then like the nearest city would be maybe an hour away, because like we do still want to be able to do city things like go out to a really nice restaurant or see a symphony or watch a comedy show or like go to a museum or a zoo or something. And you know, those things just don't really exist, or they're not very good in the suburbs or in rural communities. And then as far as weather goes, I want there to be 4 seasons. I want there to be snow, and I want the summers to not really exceed 75 degrees. I hate hot weather and I don't like the sun. I also would like there to be lots of rain when it's not snowing. And then as far as the snow goes, I don't want a very harsh winter. Like while aesthetically I love the snow, I admittedly don't really know how to live in it as an adult. I don't know how to drive in the snow, for example. I don't know how to like cold weather proof your house or your car or any of that other stuff that you're supposed to know. So the learning curve would be pretty steep for me, and I might not like some aspects of living in extreme cold weather, but I definitely do want to live where there's like pretty regular snow in the winter and where it just doesn't get so hot in the summer. Tutu Trouser asks, if you could move to any country, so this is a similar question. This is why I organize these questions so they kind of flow. If I could move to any country or live or work for the rest of my life, which one would it be and why? So basically what I just described would be the precursor for deciding which country we would live in. So it's difficult to immigrate to another country, especially if you have like a husband and 4 cats like I do. And you know, I obviously would get his input on what country we move to. For me personally, I just wouldn't feel right moving to another country and not learning their language. And I don't really want to learn another language at this point. So for me personally, I'd rather move to a country where English is either the first language or like everybody speaks English really well there. And the only country that like really comes to mind at the moment that would just make sense for me and my husband would be either Canada, which makes sense because it's right there. It's like just a 2-hour drive north of us right now. We could get to Canada. And then French Canada, his parents live up there, so we actually have some ties up there. And then, although I'd have to learn French, so that's kind of right out. And then he's also been interested in Scandinavia for like ever. The political system up there appeals to us. It might be a little too far north. It gets like really, really cold, so maybe like Denmark. But I've never been to Scandinavia, so who knows? I might not want to live there. So really, the answer I gave to Andrew's last question is more important to me, like the climate and the general like culture of the area, I guess, is more important to me than like the specific country. And Tutu Trouser also asked, do you have any advice when it comes to picking what languages to learn? Nope. Learn what you want to learn. Also asked, what is your favorite type of tea or beverage? Well, right now I'm drinking, this is actually a mango lychee green tea by Ahmed that I really like. It's very refreshing and light, but my favorite tea is black tea with cream and sugar. Rohan Fantaduran. I'm not wearing my glasses. Do you know any other languages? Can you give us an overview of your language journey? Yeah, well, I know English, I know Japanese, and I know, in air quotes, German. I learned German. It was my first second language, I like to say. I started learning it as a toddler because my dad is a German to English translator. So he kind of taught me and my brother German. He gave us like German homework to do at home. We even went to Samstagsschule every Saturday as kids. Well, not every Saturday, we like went occasionally. And that was only for like a year or two. And, you know, I got to a level where I could do some basic conversational stuff, you know, and very basic. But I was a kid, so like kids aren't very good at speaking anyway to begin with, so you know, it wasn't that unnoticeable. It wasn't that noticeable. I'm good at speaking English too. Anyway, and then I learned it in high school for a few years, and I got pretty proficient at it, but then once I started learning Japanese, I lost a lot of the German, and that's kind of another reason why I don't want to learn any more languages. I feel like if I tried, I would just lose Japanese, and I don't want to do that, so I'm done. Lion Kimbro asks, do you think that you are or might be ADD or ADHD? And if so, how did/does that factor into your experience with Japanese? I don't think I do. I have a couple friends who have ADHD and their experience seems very, very different from what I experience. Now, there's definitely something going on up here. I had a lot of tests by psychologists when I was really little, and I think most of that was just IQ tests. But yeah, like I looked at the symptoms for ADHD and I only really have like the inattentiveness, like the difficulty focusing, but that's like very selective. Like I only really have difficulty focusing with a task that I don't feel like doing. If I feel like doing the task, I can focus on it and like just do that task and be fine. I'm also very, like impulsiveness is a sign of ADHD, and I'm very much not that. I'm very much the opposite of that. Everything is planned with me. Like I wrote out all the questions for this Q&A and I organized them perfectly and like, yeah. So anyway, I don't think I have that. I might have something else, but yeah, I don't think I have that. And how would I know anyway? I'm not a doctor. So the kanji for to talk, I don't know if this is pronounced as hanashi or wa, or if it's a Chinese thing or whatever. But anyway, this person asks, are you Rh negative? It's a blood type. I don't know what my blood type is. I was tested as a kid, but I don't remember. And I also don't believe in like blood types determining a person's personality, so meh. And then, and another question, do you believe in God, the Bible, and the Messiah? Well, as an agnostic, I would have to say yes, no, and maybe. Androidicus asks, are you a vampire? So now we are in the translating profession section of the Q&A. I'm just going to preface this entire section with, I used to do videos on this channel about the profession of translating, and I don't really do them anymore. Honestly, I just said everything that I could or wanted to say about the subject, and then I finished. But I made a Facebook group for freelance translators and for aspiring freelance translators, and it is my hope in creating that group. It has a lot of people, it has like hundreds of people, but what I would like for that group to be is a place where you guys who have questions like this can go post those questions in that group. A lot of people seem to be very passive there, and they're just kind of waiting for the experts to start talking randomly and start spewing their knowledge. Go to that group, join that group. I have a link in the video description, and ask your questions there, because there's going to be plenty of people in that group who actually are going to have much better answers for these questions than I do. I have a very narrow, niche, specific experience with the profession of translating, and as such, I'm not going to be able to answer a lot of these questions that a lot of you have, but I will do my best with these questions, and if I don't know, I'm going to skip the question or just say I don't know. So Janet, she actually emailed me, asked, how often do you need to look up words in a dictionary, and how was it when you were starting out as a translator? Yeah, so I barely have to look up words right now anyway, mostly again because I'm a very niche translator. I pretty much exclusively translate light novel style, so story-based games, and that's it. From Japanese to English. And then from that, it's even more niche than that. Most of the games that I translate are otome games, so they're romance games. So they're gonna have a lot of the same themes, a lot of the same vocabulary over and over and over again. So I typically don't, like with a good job, with a typical otome game, I don't really have to look up much of anything at all, which is great. I can do it really, really super fast. And yeah, when I was starting out, of course, it was a lot more frequently than that, because just the longer you do it, the more vocabulary you learn. And then for translating manga, do you have a guidebook or a favorite website or any aid that helps you understand and translate the sound effects? Yeah, so nope. I just kind of picked those up through exposure. I read a bunch of manga, and then once you read a bunch of manga, you start like internalizing and understanding the sound effects just in the language of Japanese. Like you see kachi and you know, oh, that's a clicking sound. You don't think to yourself click, but then now that you know that that's a clicking sound, when you translate it, you'll go click. That's just kind of how the sound effects were to me. I did not learn them by a textbook or anything. I just picked them up. Bookland Saga asks, do you think it's good to get a master's in translation and eventually a PhD? No, I would think that would be incredibly boring, but your experience may differ. Also, I live in the US, where college degrees cost an arm and a leg and leave you in crippled debt forever for the rest of your life. So no, in my case, but that could be different for you. What is a translation consultancy field like? No idea. I didn't even know that was a field. Do you also think it's worth pursuing a career in translation in other fields if it's not freelance? Of course. Like, it just depends on the kind of person you are. I like freelancing personally because I like the freedom of it. I don't like people. I don't like having to answer to people. I like being my own boss. I like being able to wear sweatpants all day and not do makeup and hair like I do for these videos. You're welcome, by the way. So, you know, for me personally, I'd rather freelance, but there's lots of advantages of like not freelancing with your translating. You have job security, you know, there's probably some kind of upward mobility within the company that you could perhaps achieve. Probably like a salary, you know, more regular hours, that kind of stuff can be kind of cool. And do freelance translators get paid more than translators on other fields, or does it depend on their specialization? Yeah, I don't know. And again, it's like everyone's very secretive about their income, just in general, all fields, everyone, everywhere. And I don't think we should be. I think we should be very transparent with what we earn to the extent that we can. Like, my company doesn't let me tell people how much I earn like translating a specific game. So to save myself there, I never say the name of my company and I never say the names of the games that I translate, so that then I can say freely, well, my lowest paying jobs, I get paid 1.3 yen per character. My highest paying job at the moment, I get paid 6 yen per character. It's actually a pretty low rate compared to what it should be, but globalization and machine translation have brought that rate way down over the years. But yeah, it's really useful if we all kind of talk about that. And again, that Facebook group, I posed a question recently, actually, asking people to sound off in the comments, say, hey, how much money do you make? Because I think it's really valuable to know what other people in your field make so that you can know what to expect. Elena Rivas Charles asked, what advice would you give to someone who is planning on becoming a professional translator in the future? Basically, it's a very vague field. So my advice is just consider all of the other avenues that are related to translation, like consider editing, consider writing, consider teaching the language, any language, the language, your target language or source language. Consider being a tour guide in that country. Consider all of the other jobs that you could have with your skill set and kind of simultaneously pursue those in a way, just because it's kind of vague, this profession. And more and more often it's becoming less and less a viable full-time career. It's becoming a little bit more and more like a part-time thing for most people. So plan on it being a part-time job. For a year abroad when learning a language, is it better to go somewhere where there are less foreigners but less access to international amenities, or somewhere where there is more foreigners but better access to international amenities like a capital city? So my experience, I stayed in a small rural town. And that was perfect for me because, well, number one, as we established, I don't like cities. I love rural areas. That experience also really clued me into that. Before, I had only really had experience living in the suburbs. I knew I wasn't exactly comfortable there. And whenever I'd visit cities, I kind of knew I wasn't really comfortable there either. They overwhelmed me. But my only experience with the country was visiting my grandma on her sort of farm. She lived in a rural community, but in Clovis, California, where it gets just unbearably hot in the summer. And so my experience there was also, so I didn't know where I wanted to live. But living for the year in rural Japan made me really, okay, this is the kind of place I want to live, a rural area with 4 seasons. And yeah, for me personally, I think it's better if you're a beginner to live in a place where there's going to be no foreigners, no international stuff, and that way you're forced to really learn that new language. But it really depends on what kind of person you are. I think if you're an extrovert, you're going to be miserable in that scenario. I'm very introverted, so it was perfect for my sensibilities, but your experience may vary. Speedy Tacos, nice name, I want Speedy Tacos, asks, is there a site that allows teens including 13, meaning is that they're okay with teens translating, or that doesn't need an address, just your city? So yeah, this is territory for me. In general, it depends on your child labor laws in your country, for one thing, and then yeah, I mean, there's a lot of privacy and safety issues to consider, so the short answer is I don't know, but I would just assume probably not. Ooh, I think that means I'm running out of room. Let's empty my card. Okay, where were we? Casey Boyden asks, would you like to live in Japan someday? Would it be easier as a Japanese English translator? Yes, a part of me would like to live in Japan again someday. I really liked living there. I think a lot of what I liked about living there, though, was being an exchange student and kind of being coddled and living with rich Rotarians. I think that was part of what I was part of what I loved about living in Japan. So I'm not sure what the experience would be like now, as an adult when I have to take care of my own stuff. And as I mentioned before, I have to consider the feelings of my husband, and then immigrating to another country, especially one really far away with 4 cats, is a bit of a challenge. And as far as be easier as a Japanese English translator, yeah, that would be my in, I guess. The company that I primarily translate for is based in Tokyo. So, they would basically be my in. And they do actually need immigrants, whether they want to admit it or not right now. They're population is declining and they have a big elderly population and they need more people in their workforce. So they would be lucky to have me. Yeah, so it would be easier as a Japanese to English translator for sure. Do you recommend any certain websites for freelance job hunters who want to translate Japanese? For Japanese specifically, no. Like my best experience has been with pros.com. That's pretty much the site that I keep going back to and telling you guys, like, that's pretty much it for me. For freelance job hunters who want to translate Japanese specifically, I don't know. Although it can be a really nice strategy, I'm finding, to follow a lot of freelance Japanese translators on Twitter. I've like been discovering them slowly and now I'm following more of them and they're following me, and that can be useful because sometimes they'll post things like, hey, there's a job opening in our company or whatever. And like once there was a job opening in my company and so I was able to say, hey, come work in our company. But it hasn't happened since. But you know, that can help too, networking. And what books, English or Japanese, helps you to get in a mindset or mood for translating? I get similar questions to this a lot, and I always feel like a dumbass. I don't really read. Like, I read for pleasure. I read like fiction. And I haven't read books in a really long time. I just kind of am in a reading rut, of a non-reading rut, I guess it would be. And I think part of it is like I read for a living now, so the last thing I want to do after I'm done working is read a novel again. But yeah, like I don't read nonfiction. I find it incredibly boring and I just can't focus on it. But to get me in the mindset for translating, what gets me in the mindset is like I always just think about the people that are going to consume the stuff that I translate. I think about the fans of the games. I think about like my young weeb self and what I loved about anime and you know, anime-esque things. The games that I translate are like, a lot of them are based off of anime franchises, or they're very, very similar to like shoujo manga, which I was a huge fan of back in the day. So I just kind of put myself in that mindset. I think about myself as a young weeb. I think about the fans that are going to be enjoying, hopefully, the stuff that I translate. And I just try to think about them because that gives me more of an impetus, I guess, for doing a good job. Golden Gongzi asks, the most important question, of course, how are you doing today? Well, thank you. It's raining, and like raining. In Washington, it doesn't rain very much. It just kind of drizzles. But today it rained, and I got to go on a walk in it, and it was lovely. For a degree, would you recommend double majoring? No! Have you ever tried out interpreting? And if so, how did you feel about it in comparison to translation? I did it once and it scared the shit out of me, and I'm not gonna do it again. Although, to be fair, it was like a medical interpreting thing, and it was pretty low-key. Like it wasn't low-key, it was for a lawsuit. That's kind of what scared me. It was like medical and legal at the same time. And I just don't have a lot of that vocabulary, so it scared me. Like, I guess if I were interpreting something that like I had the vocabulary for, like romance novels, maybe I could like be an interpreter for dates or something. I'd feel comfortable doing that. But yeah, it's different. It's completely different from translating because you have to go back and forth. I only go Japanese to English, Japanese to English, Japanese to English. But interpreting, you have to go Japanese to English, English to Japanese, Japanese to English, English to Japanese. And it's its own skill that, you know, if I practiced it, I could get good at it and then it wouldn't be so terrifying. But right now, nope. Having the knowledge that you know now, if you went back a few years, would you still be a freelancer and translator? Yeah. It's paid the bills. It's been a relatively enjoyable job to do. I'm able to do it at home, and I have a lot of freedom with it. So yeah. Lila Mojas, sorry if I mispronounced that, said, I watched all your videos. All of them? I have like, 300, 400 videos. I decided to work as a freelance translator. Do you have any tips of how to become the best as a beginner and what material I need to order? By the way, I speak more than 4 languages. So first off, like speaking languages is very different from being able to translate. So that's the first point. Yeah, and the second point is, as a beginner, if you really are a straight up beginner, just practice, just translate a bunch of stuff just to see where you're at. To see how fast you are, to see how many times you have to pause to look up a word, just to see if you can do it. Like, just do it. You don't have to wait, you don't have to take a course, you don't have to read a book. You can just go to a website in a language that you know and just translate it into another language that you know, and then look for yourself and learn. So now we are on to the section of this Q&A video that's about the Japanese language specifically. Junior 12A asks, did you learn how to speak Japanese before learning kanji? If so, do you have any tips for learning kanji? Yeah, I learned Japanese and kanji like concurrently at the same time. And I suggest that's the way that you should do it. Native Japanese people, they learn Japanese kind of before they learn kanji, but also kind of at the same time. Like kids start learning kanji when they're 6. And some kanji, they probably even start learning before that, like 1 and 2 and 3 and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely start learning kanji way at the beginning. It's going to save you a lot of headaches. Another cool thing about learning kanji early on is it really helps cement new vocabulary into your head. For example, there's a kanji, so koi is romantic love, and that kanji can also be pronounced ren. So for example, renai, that's the kanji for koi and the kanji for ai, which are both love. It's like romantic love and agape love smashed together, and it kind of means romance when they're together, but it's pronounced ren in that kanji compound. Then if you see this kanji compound, it's shitsuren. So if I were to just hear orally and not see the kanji shitsuren, I might know, or my brain would start to make that connection and do process of elimination and go, ren, maybe this word that I don't know has something to do with love. And then if I know shitsu, the kanji for loss, if I know from other words that feature that kanji that it means loss, then I might put that together in my brain and go, shitsu, lost, ren, love, lost, love. So if you know kanji, like it really helps you to, when you learn new vocabulary, it makes it so much faster and easier. Kind of like knowing the Latin roots of English words. Aloe amor anse, sorry if, anesi. I'm not wearing my glasses. I'm just going to keep going with that excuse for butchering people's names. Sorry. Anyway, this person asks, how did you learn pitch accent? Was it something you did from the beginning, or did you work on it after your Japanese was already at a good level? So the pitch accent, for those of you who don't know, it's kind of like where your pitch rises and falls, intonation in the Japanese language. And you're not going to like the answer of it. It's going to make me sound really conceited, but I actually just have a natural talent for hearing things and then mimicking the things that I hear. I've always been good at mimicking accents. I've always been good at mimicking, the sounds of people's voices, character voices from cartoons. So I just have that inherent ability. And that's kind of why my pitch accent is pretty good. Again, disclaimer, my accent is not perfect. My Japanese accent is not perfect. So don't use me as an example if you want to be absolutely perfect native level Japanese speaker. But it is, I'd say, definitely better than most gaijin. So yeah, but I just listened to Japanese people and I just imitated them, and that's all there is to it. Firefox asks, I want to learn a lot of languages, including Japanese. Good for you. I don't. How would you recommend I go about this? Again, I don't have any desire at this point to learn any more languages. I'm done. So yeah, I mean, the way I learned Japanese and the way that I stayed interested in learning German when I was learning German was just to really immerse yourself in media in those languages, because, actually using the languages versus just memorizing words or staring at textbooks all day, it's going to make you a lot more invested in the process, and it's going to be a lot more fun, and you're going to keep doing it. Also, how would you recommend I start learning Japanese? Well, it just so happens I have a series called Japanese for Beginners on this channel, so you can go there. But yeah, definitely, the absolute best way, I think, an introductory course online like I have is cool, but I think a lot of people, especially in your first year, really benefit from an in-person class in a classroom that meets 5 days a week with a bunch of people in it. So you're forced to actually speak the language. But yeah, you can I was mostly self-taught myself, so yeah, you can start with my series. Colton S. asked, can you show me how to pronounce tsu and su? I can hear the difference, but I have a hard time pronouncing tsu at the beginning of the word. Yeah, a lot of people have a problem with this, a lot of English speakers, native English speakers. So you probably have heard, or maybe you haven't, but now you have, now you're going to hear it. The sound tsu, we do have naturally occurring in the English language in pluralizations of words that end in T. So like cats, mats, bots. So I think an interesting trick is similar for the trick for beginning beatboxers. If you have learned beatboxing, you might know the very, very basic fundamentals they teach you are boots and cats and pants and skirts. And if you whisper it, boots, cats, boots, it becomes like beatboxy, right? But the important thing there is the tss, 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 tss part is punched in boots and cats. And then when you say the and, bootsand cats, that helps really punch the tss, bootsand cats, pants skirts. Just really punch the sand. And if you connect it with other words on either side, it helps you say it, and then you can slow it down. You can start saying sand skirts, and just kind of slow it down until you can say tss by itself. It takes a lot of, like if you just say s, my tongue is just kind of hanging out in the middle of my mouth, and when I say t, it's like touching my hard palate, like not touching my teeth, and then when I say tss, I'm keeping my tongue up there at my hard palate, and I'm sort of keeping my tongue up there, and I'm curving it while I'm doing the tss sound. And I'm doing this with my lips too, like if I'm really exaggerating it. So all of those things hopefully can differentiate a little between s and tss. So we're on to our final section of this very long Q&A. So anyway, on to the last section. So this is our miscellaneous section. So Moe Blah Blaze It Up asks, any more song breakdowns in the works? I'd love one of Kawaki Ameku. Oh yeah, so I have my Sing Study Japanese playlist. It's floating around my face somewhere at this moment in time, where I do break down Japanese songs one word at a time and teach Japanese that way. I am going to be doing more of those. I realized I hadn't done any in a while, so I'm going to start doing more of those again. So I do actually have a $5 level of my Patreon where once a month, the members at that level send in suggestions of songs that they want me to break down one word at a time and translate in written form, and then they all vote on their own suggestions basically, and whoever gets the highest votes, I do that song once a month, and I submit it to my $5 and above patrons once a month in written form. But also I'm going to let those patrons vote whenever I decide to do a video breakdown. I will narrow it down to like 5 choices, and then they can vote from my 5 choices. So they will pick my next song actually that I'm going to do. Yeah, and I am going to do another song breakdown quite soon. I don't know if I'm going to do Kawaki wa Miku. Like, I really like that song. I liked singing it. It was fun. I don't know, I might. Bammeko asks, I understand that you likely can't name a specific game, but did you have any translating jobs you really didn't enjoy, and if yes, why? Yeah, so there was one recently. It was a whole year. It spanned a whole year. And I felt bad that I didn't like it and that I really, really dreaded doing it. I felt bad for a couple reasons. One, story-wise, it was honestly one of the best stories that I've ever translated. It was like, it's a romance story, but it actually had like a real plot. It was a historical drama. There was a lot of like political intrigue and historical stuff in there that was actually really interesting. And then it was also a great job for me because I was guaranteed a whole year's worth of work in advance, which is a godsend for a freelancer. Just knowing, oh sweet, I'm guaranteed that I will at least make $1,000 every month for the next year with this job. And then, you know, that's not enough to live off of, but at least it's a nice baseline. That can be so reassuring. And I have another one of those right now for another game that I'm guaranteed at least $1,000 a month for the next year. And it's a little reassuring to at least have that. But I just found the game to translate, it was so tedious. There was a lot of vocabulary I had to look up, and that's partly why I found it very tedious. I had to stop and interrupt my workflow many times to look up all of these historical terms, all these political terms, all these religious terms, all these like obscure historical figures' names that were in these really complicated kanji. Weird dialects. I had to, you know, kind of understand what the Tosa dialect from that era was like, and other stuff like that. So it was really hard, and I felt bad for hating it and for dreading it, and I'd always like put it off till the end, and like I'd work right up to the deadline because it was just so tedious. And I felt bad feeling that way about it because for one, I was grateful for the work, and then for another thing, it was actually a really cool story, but it was just really hard for me. And then the pay rate was pretty low considering it was that hard for me. It took me twice as long to translate that game as other games, but I was only paid 1.5 yen per character, and that's like 0.2 yen more per character than my lowest rate. So yeah, like, it was what it was. Christina Walthall asked, does your work already contain subtitles or a script in Japanese that you translate to English, or do you translate some of your work by ear? Yeah, I never translate by ear, thank God. When I do my own stuff for this channel, like the current Watch Sailor Moon Learn Japanese series I'm doing right now for the first episode of S, from classic. I'm doing that by ear. I'm transcribing that by ear because I looked on the Japanese internet and I couldn't find a fan-made script or an official script that I could get for free and easily in that. So I am transcribing that one by ear. But yeah, no, when I translate anime, and most of what I translate is text-based games, so the text is right there and I translate it and it's fine. But yeah, when I translate anime as well, there's always transcripts. And even if the actors were ad-libbing lines, like those are sometimes written in. So it's awesome. Vanshikamita asks, is Sailor Jupiter ever gonna come out of the closet? I mean, maybe if she feels like it. It's a very personal choice and I don't think we should pressure her. Shinegi Vietnamese asks, do you like Chibi Maruko-san? Chibi Maruko-san? Is it like Chibi Maruko-chan as a grown-up? Yeah, I love Chibi Maruko-chan. That's one of my favorite anime and manga series of all time. I watched it every Sunday when I lived in Japan. Great series, very underrated. Could you make a video teaching Japanese from one ep there? I wouldn't mind. I also want to ask how I can find Japanese subscript for Chibi Maruko-chan videos. Therein lies the issue there. I haven't looked really hard, to be fair, but I haven't found like, you know, raw videos of the episodes. But yeah, in general, if you want to find like Japanese videos, you probably need a VPN. I got one recently. And if you put a Japanese address in there, like it tricks the internet into thinking that you live in Japan, because there's a lot of videos that are blocked. If you don't live in Japan, there's like a lot of music videos and Japanese anime videos and stuff like that that are just outright blocked if you don't live in Japan or maybe Asia. But, you know, if you're in America like I am, then you can't watch those videos without a VPN, so maybe get a VPN. And then Thundercore 444 asks, what do you think of the new Sailor Moon Crystal teaser? Meh. I'm not really that interested in teasers in general. They barely reveal anything, and I feel like they're just a tease. Like, I mean, yeah, that's what they say they are, but yeah, they're just a tease. I mean, I guess it was neat. We got to see like the iconic, you know, shots from classic, but in crystal art. In the art it evolved yet again. I don't particularly care so much about art styles. I don't, like a lot of people who hate crystal, like they hate like, you know, the inconsistencies with the art style, like it was rushed or something, or they just don't like the look of that art style. They don't like the spindly legs or whatever. I don't really care about any of that stuff. I care about plot, character development. Boom, that's all. And like maybe fancy, pretty background music is a plus. But yeah, I couldn't really get much of any of that from the teaser, so I don't really have much of an opinion on it. Well, that took forever. I guess that's what happens when you get 1,000 more subscribers in a month. Thanks to Tofugu, by the way, for sending those 1,000 people over to me. And thank you to all of the patrons who support this channel and all the videos and video series on it. I don't know when I'm going to be doing another one of these Q&A videos, maybe when I get another 1,000 subscribers. Ugh. And I have no snappy ending for this, so I'm just going to stop talking.